The year before he died, Cicero wrote a short dialogue as a direct companion to the one on old age we explored in our last chapter, dedicated to the very same friend, written from the very same late, reflective season of his own life. Its subject was friendship, and its central claim still lands with some force that a life without a true friend, however full it might otherwise appear, is a life missing something almost nothing else can replace. This might sound obvious, even sentimental, until Cicero starts narrowing his definition. Most of what we casually call friendship, he argues, is something considerably thinner: useful alliance, pleasant company, shared convenience. None of it wrong exactly, but none of it the rare, tested thing he actually means by the word. True friendship, in his account, is demanding, rare, and takes years to earn. Tonight, in a shorter chapter than usual, we look at what actually separates the two and why the rare kind is worth the considerable effort it asks of us. This distinction is worth pausing on before we go further, because most of us move through an ordinary week using the same single word, friend, for people who occupy wildly different places in our actual lives: the colleague we enjoy lunch with, the neighbor we wave to, and the handful of people we would call at 2 a.m. without hesitation. Cicero is not interested in policing the word. He is interested in making sure we do not confuse the first two categories for the third, since only the third carries the weight this entire chapter is actually about. Consider, too, why Cicero felt this subject deserved a dialogue entirely separate from the one on aging, rather than folding it in as a single chapter within that larger work. Friendship, in his view, was not simply one ingredient among many in a life well lived. It was significant enough, complicated enough, and valuable enough to deserve its own full, careful examination, which is exactly the treatment we are giving it here, even in this shorter form. This is on friendship. Chapter 1. What friendship actually is. Cicero defines true friendship with unusual precision, complete agreement on matters human and divine, joined with goodwill and genuine affection. Strip away the elevated language and the core claim is this: real friendship is not mere fondness or convenient company. It is a shared way of seeing the world, sustained by real care for the other person's good, not merely for what they can offer you. This distinguishes it sharply from the far more common bond Cicero calls friendship of utility, the alliance formed because two people are useful to each other, colleagues who get along, neighbors who trade favors. Nothing wrong exists in these relationships, but Cicero insists they are not what the word should really mean, because they dissolve the moment the usefulness does. True friendship, by contrast, has no transaction underneath it. It persists specifically because it was never conditional on what either party could extract from the other. Consider how easily this distinction gets blurred in ordinary life. A working relationship built over years of genuine mutual respect can gradually deepen into something closer to true friendship. Cicero does not claim the categories never overlap or evolve. What he insists on is honesty about which one you are actually in at any given moment, since treating a utility-based alliance as though it carried the depth of tested friendship tends to produce disappointment precisely when the alliance's usefulness eventually runs out, as most such arrangements eventually do. The test worth applying honestly to your own relationships: would this bond survive if neither of you could offer the other anything practical ever again? Many pleasant relationships would not, and this is worth knowing plainly, rather than mistaking every warm acquaintance for the rarer thing Cicero is actually describing. Chapter 2. Why virtue must come. First, Cicero makes a claim many find surprising. True friendship is only possible between people of genuinely good character. Not because flawed people cannot be liked, but because the deepest bond he describes requires a foundation of trust and honesty that poor character eventually undermines, however charming the person may be in the meantime. This matters because friendship, in his account, does not fix bad character. It amplifies whatever character already exists. Two ambitious, unscrupulous people bound in close alliance do not become better through their bond. They typically become more effective at whatever they were already inclined toward, for better or worse. This is why Cicero warns against forming close bonds too quickly, before character has actually been observed under real pressure rather than merely assumed from a pleasant first impression. This is not an argument for perfectionism in choosing friends, nor a license to abandon someone the moment they reveal an ordinary human flaw. Cicero was realistic enough to know no one is flawless, himself included. The distinction he is drawing is narrower, between someone whose character, examined honestly over time, points toward decency and growth, and someone whose character, examined just as honestly, does not. The first kind of person is worth the patient investment true friendship requires. The second, however enjoyable their company in the short term, rarely rewards it. The practical implication is straightforward. If uncomfortable, examine your closest bonds honestly for whether they rest on mutual respect for who the other person actually is, or merely on shared amusement, convenience, or unexamined familiarity. The first tends to deepen with time. The second, absent anything sturdier beneath it, often does not. Chapter 3. The Test of True Friendship. Cicero offers a specific, practical test for distinguishing real friendship from its many imitators. Does it hold in both directions, through your prosperity and through genuine hardship? Many people who appear as friends during comfortable seasons quietly vanish once real difficulty arrives, revealing, often for the first time, what the bond actually was. This is not cynicism about human nature, so much as an honest observation about how thinly founded relationships behave under real pressure. A bond formed around shared success, status, or convenience frequently cannot survive the removal of any of those things. A bond formed around genuine regard for the other person, examined honestly, tends to hold precisely when it is needed most, not because the difficulty is pleasant, but because the affection was never actually dependent on the good times continuing. There is a related, less comfortable version of this test worth naming as well. Sometimes the friend who vanishes during hardship is not acting from indifference, but from their own discomfort with difficulty, an inability to know what to say or do that has nothing to do with how much they actually care. This does not erase the disappointment of their absence, but it is worth holding alongside Cicero's test, rather than concluding too quickly that every absence during hardship proves the friendship was never real. Some simply reveal instead a friend still learning how to show up. Consider your own closest relationships against this test directly. Who showed up consistently during your hardest seasons, not merely offering sympathy, but genuinely present? Cicero would say this short list, however small, names your actual friends far more reliably than any longer list of people you simply enjoy. Chapter 4. Loving before being loved. There is a specific, common instinct Cicero pushes back against directly, waiting to see whether someone will love you before extending your own affection first. This calculated caution, he argues, gets the entire process backward and tends to produce exactly the guarded, shallow relationships it was meant to protect against. His argument is that genuine affection extended first and without guarantee of return is what actually creates the conditions for real friendship to develop at all. A relationship where both parties are cautiously waiting for the other to move first rarely deepens into anything substantial. It stays exactly as guarded as its beginning because neither side ever risked the vulnerability real connection actually requires. This does not mean affection should be extended blindly, regardless of any evidence about the other person's character. The earlier chapter's caution about virtue still applies fully here. It means that once a person has shown themselves generally trustworthy, the remaining hesitation, waiting for them to prove their affection first before risking your own, is usually simple self-protection rather than genuine wisdom. And self-protection of this particular kind tends to cost considerably more in relationships never allowed to deepen than the vulnerability it was trying to avoid. This carries a specific, practical invitation. Consider a relationship you have kept at careful, guarded distance, waiting for some clearer signal before investing further. Cicero's argument suggests the signal you are waiting for may never arrive first from the other side, and that genuine warmth offered without that guarantee is very often what finally invites it. Chapter 5. The Danger of Flattery. Cicero reserves particular scorn for flattery, which he considers friendship's most dangerous imitation, because it feels, from the inside, exactly like being liked, while actually functioning as a kind of quiet betrayal. A flatterer tells you what you want to hear, agrees readily, never challenges a decision or a blind spot, and in doing so, deprives you of exactly what a true friend is for. A real friend, by contrast, risks the relationship's comfort by telling you hard truths when they matter. A poor decision, a blind spot, a pattern worth examining. This is uncomfortable in the moment and, Cicero argues, considerably more valuable across a lifetime than the comfortable agreement flattery offers instead. Cicero notes something particularly worth remembering about flattery's appeal. We rarely seek it out consciously, recognizing it for what it is. It works precisely because it does not announce itself. It simply feels, in the moment, like being understood and appreciated, which makes it considerably harder to guard against than an obviously false compliment would be. The people most susceptible to it are often not the vain or foolish, but simply anyone who has stopped actively wanting the discomfort of an honest correction, which describes at some point nearly everyone. The practical test here cuts both ways. Ask honestly which of your close relationships would actually tell you an uncomfortable truth if you needed to hear it, and ask, just as honestly, whether you extend that same honest courage to the people who trust you. Comfortable agreement is easy to mistake for closeness. Cicero suggests real closeness looks, at least sometimes, like the opposite. Chapter 6. Friendship cannot be rushed. There is a specific caution Cicero offers against quick intimacy, the instant, intense connection that feels, in its early weeks, like the real thing, before either person has actually been tested by time. True friendship, he insists, requires years of demonstrated reliability, because character reveals itself gradually, under a variety of real circumstances, not all at once in a promising first impression. This does not mean new relationships are worthless, or that warmth should be withheld indefinitely out of excessive caution. The previous chapter already argued against that instinct directly. It means holding new relationships with an honest patience, allowing trust to be earned across genuine tests, rather than assumed prematurely from early enthusiasm alone. There is a specific reason this patience matters more than it might initially seem. An intense early connection, mistaken prematurely for the real thing, tends to carry outsized disappointment when it later reveals its actual, thinner nature. Holding new relationships with realistic, patient expectations from the outset, enjoying the early warmth for what it genuinely is, without yet demanding from it what only years can supply, protects against this specific disappointment while still leaving full room for the relationship to eventually deepen into something considerably more, given enough real time and shared testing. For anyone currently building a new friendship later in life, this is worth holding gently rather than as discouragement. The depth Cicero describes is available, but it arrives on its own schedule through actual shared experience across real seasons, not through the intensity of any single early conversation, however promising it felt. Chapter 7. The Grief of Losing a Friend. Cicero wrote this entire dialogue partly in memory of his own closest friend, already lost by the time of its writing, and he does not pretend the risk of loss is small. Real friendship, precisely because it involves real attachment, carries real grief when it ends through death, distance, or estrangement. His response to this risk is not to recommend guarded distance as protection. He argues the opposite. A life organized around avoiding this particular grief by withholding real friendship altogether produces a worse outcome than the grief itself, a life thinner, lonelier, and ultimately poorer for having avoided the very attachment that makes a life feel worth living in the first place. This argument carries particular weight, coming from Cicero specifically, because he is not speaking hypothetically about a loss he has managed to avoid. He is speaking from inside a grief he was actually living through as he wrote these very words, and choosing, even then, to argue in favor of the bond that caused it rather than against forming such bonds again. This is not the position of someone minimizing the cost. It is the considered judgment of someone who had already paid it in full and still concluded the friendship had been worth it. There is a practical middle ground worth naming here too, between reckless emotional exposure and complete guardedness, acknowledging the risk honestly, in advance as simply the price this particular good asks of anyone who wants it. A farmer plants a field, knowing weather may ruin the harvest, and plants anyway, because the alternative, an empty field, guaranteed safe from loss precisely because nothing was risked on it, was never actually the better outcome. Cicero is asking for exactly this same clear-eyed willingness, applied to the people rather than the field. This connects directly to earlier chapters in this series on courage and on facing what we fear. The grief friendship risks is real and deserves honest acknowledgement, but Cicero's argument, tested by his own loss, is that the alternative, a life without this particular risk, was never actually the safer choice. It was simply the smaller one. Chapter 8. Friendship in Old Age. Writing this dialogue as a direct companion to his reflections on aging, Cicero makes a specific claim worth carrying forward from our previous chapter. Friendship does not become less important with age. It becomes more essential precisely as other sources of daily structure and validation, career, active parenting, formal status, naturally recede. The friendships sustained across decades carry a specific weight. Newer ones cannot replicate shared history, tested loyalty, the particular comfort of being fully known by someone who remembers who you were across many versions of yourself. This is not available quickly, at any age. It is available only to relationships given the actual years required to build it, which makes long-sustained friendships, examined honestly, among the more valuable and irreplaceable resources a long life can contain. There is a specific quality to being known this fully worth naming directly. A friend of many decades does not require you to explain your own history before understanding your reaction to something new. They were often present for the earlier chapters that shaped it. This particular kind of understanding, built entirely from accumulated shared years rather than from any single conversation, however deep, is simply unavailable to newer relationships, regardless of how much genuine warmth they may already contain. It is one of the specific, irreplaceable gifts only time itself can supply. For anyone whose social circle has naturally thinned with age, a common, rarely discussed reality, this chapter offers a specific, practical invitation. The old friendships still available deserve deliberate tending, not passive hope that they simply persist on their own. And new ones, while harder to build later in life, remain genuinely possible, given the patience the previous chapter already described. Chapter 9: How Few True Friends Anyone Actually Needs. There is a specific relief available in one of Cicero's more counterintuitive claims. True friendship, by its demanding nature, is necessarily rare. He does not consider this a deficiency to be corrected by cultivating a wider circle. He considers it simply the accurate shape of the thing. A life is fortunate to have even a small handful of genuine friends across an entire lifetime, and should not measure itself against a broader, shallower social circle as though quantity were the actual goal. This offers real relief to anyone who has quietly compared their own small circle of deep friendships against other people's apparently wide social networks and concluded something was lacking in their own life. Cicero's argument suggests the comparison itself is mistaken. A wide circle of pleasant acquaintances and a small handful of tested, genuine friends are simply not the same category of thing, and the second, however small in number, is the one that actually does the work friendship is supposed to do. This comparison has only become easier to make and more misleading in an age where social networks display themselves publicly and numerically. A follower count, a list of connections, a visible tally that invites exactly the comparison Cicero warns against. None of this visible breadth says anything reliable about whether even one relationship on the list would meet the tests this chapter has described. The quiet, undisplayed handful who actually would meet them remain, regardless of what any public tally suggests, the only number that was ever actually worth counting. None of this argues against enjoying a wider circle of pleasant, lower-stakes relationships as well. Cicero was, by every account, a genuinely social man who valued good company broadly, not only his closest few. The point is simply not to confuse the two categories or to feel a private sense of lack because your handful of tested friends is smaller than someone else's visible network of acquaintances. Both kinds of relationship have their place. Only one of them was ever meant to bear the particular weight this chapter has been describing. The practical question worth asking honestly is not how many friends you have, but how many would meet the tests this chapter has already described. Present through hardship, honest rather than flattering, tested across real years. Cicero would say that number, however small, is likely enough. Chapter 10. What to do with the friendships. Having examined what true friendship actually is, what it requires and how rare and valuable it genuinely is, the practical question becomes what to actually do with the friendships already available to you right now in your own life. Cicero's implicit answer, threaded throughout this entire dialogue, is deliberate tending. The same kind of active, ongoing engagement this series has already described in its chapters on discipline. A true friendship, once established, does not sustain itself automatically through the passage of time alone. It requires continued presence, honest communication, and the willingness to show up specifically during the hardships that reveal what the bond actually is. This deliberate tending need not be elaborate or time-consuming to be genuine. A brief, unprompted phone call, simply to ask how someone is actually doing rather than waiting for an occasion that requires it, often does more for a real friendship than an impressive but rare gesture reserved for special events. Cicero's entire argument suggests that friendship is sustained less by grand demonstrations and more by the accumulated weight of many small, genuine moments of presence, offered consistently across the ordinary weeks that make up most of an actual life. There is a final, specific practice worth naming, one Cicero himself seems to have valued highly. Simply telling a true friend plainly and without a special occasion required what their friendship has actually meant to you. This is easy to postpone indefinitely, assuming there will always be a better, more natural moment for it later. Cicero's own dialogue, written in the wake of losing the friend it was partly inspired by, stands as a quiet argument against that assumption. Later is not guaranteed. Today, however ordinary, already qualifies. This might mean, concretely, reaching out to a friend you have let time and distance quietly separate you from, without waiting for some more convenient future occasion. It might mean offering the honest word a flattering silence has been substituting for. It might simply mean naming to yourself, if not aloud, which relationships in your life meet Cicero's demanding definition, and giving those deliberately more of your finite and valuable time than the wider, more comfortable circle around them. Conclusion. Cicero closes his own dialogue with a claim that still holds real weight. A life without friendship is a life without something the sun itself was meant to illuminate, not a minor absence, but a genuine, significant poverty, regardless of whatever else that life might contain. This chapter connects directly to the one before it. Old age, examined honestly, draws much of its richness from exactly the resource this chapter has described. Relationships sustained across decades, tested by real time, valuable precisely because they cannot be quickly replicated at any age. The discipline, courage, and steadiness this series has spent 13 prior chapters building are not separate from friendship. They are, in large part, what makes a person capable of being the kind of friend Cicero is actually describing, present in hardship, honest rather than flattering, patient enough to let trust build across real years. If this 30-minute treatment leaves you wanting the fuller version, more of Cicero's own examples, more of the dialogue's actual texture, that fuller chapter remains available for a future evening whenever a longer sitting suits you better than tonight's shorter one did. For now, the core of the argument has been offered in full, regardless of its shorter running time. So take one thing from tonight, and let it be simple. Name, honestly, the friendships in your own life that meet this chapter's demanding definition, however few they turn out to be. Then give one of them this week something Cicero would recognize, not a passing pleasantry, but genuine presence, honestly offered. Thank you for spending this shorter chapter with us tonight. We will meet again, same time, for the next chapter in this journey, back to our usual longer form. Until then, the sun rarely announces when it will stop shining on any particular friendship. Tend the ones you have while they are still fully lit.